Sterling Belikov Outdoors here. You guys asked for it on my X, and I have got a special firearm that's been in my collection personally for a long time. We're not going to talk about it too much just yet. Instead, we're going to go and shoot it more at this point. So let's pop off some rounds with this wonderful 45 auto, and then let's talk about it some. Alright guys, that's about, let's say about 8 or 9 rounds through that. First round had 3 rounds in it, second magazine had 7 rounds in it. Let's move back over into the shade and talk some about this wonderful weapons platform I have here in my hand. So, Sterling Belikov back over here. We're behind the camera at this point. We are going to talk about the firearm that we're shooting today, and this is the Remington 1911 R1S. So there's an interesting story behind the R1S and Remington. Allegedly, the stories that I heard from people who kind of had ties with Remington whenever these came out was Remington for years had been putting out handguns, or rifles. Remington for years had been putting out rifles, such as the very well-known Remington 700, the 870 pump-action shotgun. They had several others in their line. However, Remington for years did not have a semi-automatic handgun line. They had numerous different bolt-action, pump-action, even ARs in both 308 and 223, 5.56 rifles, but didn't have any handguns. Back in the day, which, and whenever I say that, I mean like 1800s, 1900s, Remington actually was known for their revolvers, such as the, I believe it was 1800s Army, which was initially a cap and ball, and then they came out with a version that was a revolver that was chambered for smokeless powder. It looked very, very similar to the Colt single action Army. And then as the years progressed, they came forward with more of the semi-automatic cartridges at the turn of the century. Remington ended up going and producing several different semi-automatic pocket pistols, some of those in 380 after John Moses Browning ended up releasing the 380 or 32 autos and his line of automatic pistol cartridges, which the Colt company featured. Remington followed suit, and you had some of the pistols such as the R51, which was a early Remington pocket pistol. Remington tried to release that years later, and it utterly failed due to Remington's lack of design and quality control. The pistols were trash. They weren't really well received, but the thing that started off Remington's foray back into pistols was this, the Remington 1911. And the R1s were really, really well received at the time. There was only a couple companies who were out there making 1911s of decent quality. You had people like Les Baer, you had Kimber, you had Colt was still making 1911s, but then you kind of had this low-end 1911 market, which had people like, at the time, wasn't well received, Rock Island. People wanted something better quality than a Rock Island in their eyes from an American-made company, because Rock Island had kind of went through the schemes that Springfield did. Springfield ended up leaving the United States and had most of their firearms produced in Croatia. Those who don't know, Rock Island Armory ended up having a similar issue because Rock Island Armory was initially a military plant that was then sold from ordnance and bought by a Filipino company. The Rock Island Armory that we have today is not the arms production that was made here in the United States at the Rock Island Armory in the 50s and 60s during Vietnam before it closed down. Remington ended up coming in and actually had patents that they had from way back in the 40s from whenever they partnered with Colt. Some people know this, some people don't. During World War II, Remington was actually one of the companies that was contracted to make 1911s for the military. Although they were a different company back then, Remington has went through several different iterations of its company. Remington Rand was actually the company back then, and they did not only some to do with firearms, but they also did like typewriters and different things, and they were trying to just keep the Remington company alive. So they went back, and the Remington company went back in their archives and found the 1911 patents that they had. They kind of polled a whole bunch of people and said, hey, would you be interested in a Remington pistol, especially a 1911 that we could put on the market for $600-700? What would you guys think of that? And the public absolutely went nuts. They loved the idea of having an old American manufacturer, because initially in the United States, we had three major manufacturers. You had Colt, Remington, and Smith & Wesson. Those were the original big three manufacturers in the United States. And for Remington to come out with a handgun after years of not producing handguns, especially an American classic like a 1911, was just such a well-received thing. Unfortunately, later on, as these pistols got into their production, quality control fell off, as it did, unfortunately, with a lot of the Remington firearms. Most of that ended up happening around, I want to say, 2010 to 2015, somewhere in that range. The Remington quality control just ended up dropping off the face of the earth. There wasn't really good firearms being produced by them. The quality control wasn't there. And unfortunately, later on, the firearms company would end up being, once again, falling into defunct. I think, based on research that I found, Remington Firearms has once again been bought by another manufacturer, and hopefully their quality control will come back soon. We're already starting to see that happen with Bushmaster, but let's focus on this firearm. So this is their R1S, which denotes that it's stainless steel. All of the Remington firearms ended up being built of billet stainless steel. Both the slide and the frame were high quality stainless steels. You had a blued variant of their R1, and you had the S, which denotes stainless, but the stainless finish. Both guns were stainless steel, and from what I've been able to find out from both my research and other people. However, you had the blacked and the blued. This one I ended up getting almost as soon as the Remingtons hit the market. I wasn't actually even able to legally buy this. I was 17, 18 at the time. I ended up getting this as a gift from my grandmother, who then gave it to me, and I was able to participate in a lot of cool shooting events with this exact same firearm. This is one of the first handguns that I ever got to shoot in large amounts. We did the Star a while back. That was the first center fire handgun I really got to play with, other than some 22s, and that led me to this. This was the first handgun I actually got to put money towards and buy. So after getting it, after having it a little while, I ended up upgrading this 1911 with a extended beaver tail. On the other side, we have an extended thumb safety. It's had a trigger job to make this have like 2.5 pound, 3 pound trigger. It absolutely breaks like glass. And of course, out front, the unmistakable muzzle compensator, very, very similar to the one used by the Thomas Jane Punisher. In fact, we've got a little bit of a Punisher medallion going on these grips. Now, these are kind of the dressy grips that I have for these. I rotate those out. 1911 grips are very cheap. You can kind of dress up or dress down your 1911 as you please. This was kind of the original American Barbie doll that the Glock is today. People dress these up, dress these down, stylize them. It's an original American firearm, and it's as American as the 1911 is as apple pie. And there's even some debate with that. But that is kind of the history of this firearm and everything involving it, and Remington, and getting these back into production. These were awesome firearms if you can get some of the earlier batches. Later batches, like I said, had quality control issues. They had some problems. I've never really had too much problems with this firearm. Like I said, I've owned it since I was about 17 or 18. Had hundreds probably rounds through it. I don't think I have thousands of rounds through it yet, hopefully. But it's always been a very reliable firearm. Even whenever I was doing steel shooting competitions with this, I had very, very few issues with it. It's ran reliably, and even after doing some modifications on it, it's always continued to run reliably. So, we're going to do something a little bit different. Instead of me just shooting and talking about the firearm, you guys have requested on my X, which I highly encourage you guys to do who follow me on Rumble and YouTube. My wife will go and leave a tag for you to follow me on X. I really appreciate you guys doing that, because that's where up until recently I have had the firearms polls up, which firearm you want to see next. So, I'm actually going to turn this over, as you guys requested, to get my wife to do another portion of the shooting. She's going to shoot the next couple magazines out of this, and she's going to kind of give you guys her thoughts from a woman's perspective on what she thinks of this 1911 My Remington R1S.
All right. This is Mrs. Belikoff of Belikoff Outdoors, also known as Sasha. I'm usually one behind the camera, so I'm a little nervous, I'll admit. But this is one of my own personal favorites of my hubby's arsenal. Whenever we first started dating, it was a little bit intimidating, even though I had experience with Berettas, as he showed in one of his videos. There was a time he briefly talked about getting rid of this firearm, and I about beat him senseless, because this is one of my firearms, and I wasn't about to have him part with it, no matter the situation.
One of her favorites of my firearms.
Yep. One of favorites. A favorite. Whichever you want to pick. But I already hear those that, oh, a woman can't shoot a big one. Can't shoot a big 45. That's too big. I'm going to shake my head and I'm going to prove that I enjoy shooting just as much as any man does. Alright.
So magazine's loaded. Just rack one in the chamber.
One already in the chamber.
All right, before we go and shoot any more magazines, what are your thoughts on the trigger? Woman's perspective on that trigger. Like I mentioned earlier, that had a trigger job done on it, taking it from about a 4.5 pound, 5 pound standard single action 1911 trigger down to a 2.5, 3 pound trigger.
I honestly had no issues with the trigger beforehand, but it's even better, even smoother, and I'll admit, weak fingers. I struggle with reloading magazines, but no issue whatsoever, no issues with the pull. As you saw, I did go a little bit faster. It's been a minute since I've shot it, so I was having a little bit of fun. Like I said, some recoil, if you're not used to it, as a woman not used to it, maybe start with something smaller, but as I said, I like the big ones. Take that as you will.
So, thoughts on working the slide on that? Some women really struggle working a duty size firearms slide. How is the slide working that for you as a woman, as you said, with weaker hand strength?
Honestly, I've done and looked at, over at gun shops, looked at Kimbers, looked at Smith & Wessons. This I have no issues with. There's some of the Kimbers I struggle with. And there's some of the Smith & Wessons I struggle with. Some, what was that one I really liked? The P938? I had no issues with that one.
So that's a SIG, P938.
But yeah, no, like I said, easy to deal with, easy to maneuver, really good trigger. I got no issues with it.
Okay. So guys, if you guys enjoy seeing my wife out here shooting more on the channel, I will go and put up a couple more videos that we can potentially get her out here, like a part 2 to the Beretta. I'm sure she would love to jump in front of the camera and shoot her Beretta this time around and give her thoughts and opinions on that. But let's get a couple more magazines through this and get her closing thoughts as well as my closing thoughts on this firearm.
Now I'm going to try to behave a little bit this time.
Slide lock.
One more.
Now, this is a topic of discussion and debate between me and my wife. I personally prefer more aggressively textured grips. However, with my wife, who works in the restaurant industry and doesn't have the hand texturing that I do as a guy who's worked outdoors for most of his life, she prefers very smooth grips compared to me, where I like very aggressive textured grips, which in my opinion keeps the firearm more in your control. But let's hear a woman's perspective on that.
Maybe to a degree you'll have some more control with it with the grip textures, but with my hands, I'll admit, especially if I'm firing at the rate I like to shoot, more times out of 10 I'm going to have raw hands by the end of the shooting range fun.
Now, this is something we can talk about as far as aggressive grip texturing. There have been some firearms that you didn't like the texturing on at all, but let's talk about the Smith & Wesson M&P Compact that I had. While that had aggressive grip texturing, did you have a problem with that one?
No, not really, honestly. Like I said, it's just my personal preference. I don't really like the super textured. Like I said, sometimes it makes my hands raw, but contrary to what he believes, the smoother grips I feel like I have more control over. I don't know if that's because just how my hands are, being a woman, or if it's just my own personal thing.
All right, so we got one more magazine, I believe. Let's go ahead and shoot that, and then we'll go downrange and see the results of Mrs. Belikov firing.
And I already know my aim as far as with a handgun, it's not like my husband's. My forte is usually more of long rifles. So. And that's that.
So let's go down and check out the target in just a second.
So 5 mags, 8 rounds per mag. As I said, not exactly the best groupings as hubby will be. I think closer to the last one, I was doing more of my small groupings here. But As you can tell, I was still hitting the target, even though I wasn't as small groupings as I like to do whenever I'm rifle shooting. But with what I was aiming at, I was going to hit and do some damage, especially with a 45.
So it goes to say that this is a little bit smaller than a torso-sized targets. Most of the time, while shot placement does absolutely become a factor, stuff like this is 100% on target and would probably give you incapacitating hits. If you look at the center of most of these bullseye targets, you're going to be hitting somewhere in the abdomen. Any shots in the abdomen are probably going to render the person who you're shooting at, they're not going to be in a fighting mood for very long, especially not with something like a 45. So, what are your thoughts on the Remington R1S 1911?
As I said, one of my absolute favorites. Those that like to say it's a man's gun, not a female's gun, they can kiss my rear. They're definitely one of my favorites I like to shoot. I can do the concealed carry smaller ones, but you can ask Mr. Belikoff, even whenever I'm looking at guns for concealed carry, I'm always gravitating to the bigger caliber, bigger size guns.
So, being that most people say, oh, the 45 1911 is a man's gun, what would you say to women who are drawn more towards stuff like the 1911 in 45 or the Beretta 92 or Beretta 92A1 or guns like the SIG P226?
As hubby has mentioned on his videos, for both his male followers as well as his female followers, go out to the range, don't be afraid to shoot something a little bit bigger. The guys on the range are going to help you if you have any issues struggling with the recoil. Don't be afraid to try something, because you'll never know, you might surprise them. Or some of my other married women out there, you might find a gun your hubby struggles with, but you do just fine. Has nothing to do with gender, just whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay, guys, so I think I agree with a lot of the things that Mrs. Belikov brought up. Absolutely love this firearm. Most of the 1911s is what I started out shooting. They're a super familiar firearm to me. I don't understand why a lot of people don't like them. Yes, there's the grip safety. I understand why some people don't like the grip safety, but does the grip safety get in the way with you?
No, not sure. Me personally, I don't like the appearance of a large beaver tail, but that's just on the personal cosmetics. It does well to protect from any type of like
Hammer
biting
bite
or anything. Of course, my hands, as you can tell, small enough, don't have to worry about the biting. But again, cosmetic, I don't really care for the big beaver tail, but it does what it's supposed to do.
So, guys, if you are interested in a firearm, I absolutely recommend going out, shooting that firearm, trying out different firearms, go to the range with your significant other, enjoy firearms in the outdoors together, have that as something that you guys can enjoy. As always, guys, this is a gun that I personally would recommend, male or female. If you guys really enjoy a firearm like this, I would say this is more of, for most people, a home defense firearm. I don't see a lot of people doing what I did for a very long time and conceal carrying this, but if you're bold enough and you have the right body type, you absolutely can do it. The 1911 has a very, very slim slide profile, which allows it to get in nice and tight to your body. You can conceal carry a full-size, even compensated 1911. It can be done. It's just a matter of wearing the right clothing and, I guess, mindset. So, what would you recommend this firearm for?
Kind of as you said, I saw no issues whenever you conceal carry. If you can, of course, I couldn't conceal to carry something this big, but definitely as a home defense. Or if you're larger stature woman, go, of course. If you want to rock this, conceal carry, rock it. But definitely no issues with this being a home defense gun. And like I said, works really well with me. Just on go experiment, ladies. See what you're comfortable with shooting, comfortable with carrying, no matter the size.
All right, so I have another firearm to bring out. We're going to do a couple test cycle shots with that, and I have kind of an announcement that I'm going to make. So you guys stay tuned. It's going to be a brief transition, and we're going to get into that. All right, guys, Sterling Belikov, Belikov Outdoors, back. And as you can tell, this is not a Remington R1S 1911. This is a firearm that I've been saving, trying to get Patreon support for, and really give you guys an awesome video on it. Unfortunately, that kind of leads me to the announcement I'm kind of having to make. We're going to go and get a couple rounds through this. I'm going to put about 4 rounds through this so you guys can see this isn't just a prop, as it's been accused of being a couple times whenever I've noticed. I've dropped pictures of this in a couple different groups. So what this is, before I go and shoot it, is this is a Turkish clone of the Benelli M4 1014 used by the United States Marine Corps. This one is the marine finish, which is used or meant to be used for water or saltwater use to help it from corroding. I got this one because I kind of had the idea that you see here in front of you in what it would turn into, and I've got to say it turned out better than I could have imagined. So initially these come into the country with a 5-round magazine. It's capped off right out here, and you have to do the same kind of replacements that you do with the Benelli M4. This gun is different from almost all of the other Turkish guns in the fact that, for better or for worse, it accepts 1-to-1 Benelli parts. Again, if I haven't said this, this is the MAC 1014. Really, really great gun, guys. I've went and had some friends who own Benelli M4s and paid more for them than unfortunately I could. But I got this. I started putting a few rounds through it, a box or two here and there, and it has showed no issues deforming. Unfortunately, some of the lower end firearms like the Panzer M4 very quickly start showing signs of deteriorating of the pistons that this runs off of, damaging as it's being shot. The Panzer that I have, or the MAC, not Panzer, MAC 1014 that I have, has showed no signs of any kind of issues with the heat treatment on any of the internals or any of the other parts. So I ended up switching out the magazine tube with a real Benelli M4 magazine tube. This is their full-length 7-round magazine tube. I ended up going to I believe it was Canadian-owned company, and getting a Benelli M4 bayonet attachment. Back over here, we have the Surefire, I believe it's the ProTac XL, which is the high lumen on there, and a pressure pad set up. And then of course on top we have a heat shield over the top, perforated so you don't burn your hand on this scorching barrel, because after you start throwing shotgun shells through here, that barrel heats up quick. In addition to that, I did one other kind of major or minor, depending on how you want to look at it, modification to this gun, and dropped tritium night sights in there, which I don't know if you'll be able to really get a good look at since it's daytime. But those replaced the standard white dot ghost ring sights on this firearm. So I went and did some modifications like that on this, making it, I believe, the base gun is like 400, 600. After the modifications I did, I'm somewhere between 12 and 14 on this. But like for like Benelli, but at half the cost, or a little more than half the cost. Some people would say, oh, well, you're better off going with an Oryx or a different Turkish-made shotgun. Well, guys, there's not much difference between the Oryx and this. Both of them are made in Turkey. As far as I can tell, they're probably made down the street at a factory that is a subsidiary of SDS, which I'm pretty sure the same is true with Mac. So you're not really getting a whole lot of difference other than sticker price. The big difference, what I think, is maybe a little bit of the paint job. Anyway, enough talking. I'm gonna flip the safety off on this, and you guys are gonna get to, on camera, see 4 shells out of this run, and I've probably put 14 through it so far. Never had any failures, never had any issues with this. Been running all buckshot so far. Part of the reason I wanted this to go on my Patreon is this shotgun actually has a 125 round break-in period or something like that. I wanted to do a complete burn down of all 125 rounds other than like the 12 or 14 I've already shot through it on camera with an elapsed time, so you guys could actually see me in real time break this shotgun in and then go forward and run the birdshot and see if this would indeed be just as good as a Benelli. That was a Patreon project that I had for this. I hoped that would be something that most people would be interested in seeing. That hasn't really materialized. Like I said, we're going to talk a little bit more on that after I go and shoot these 4 rounds through it. So let's go ahead and bust those out. So as you guys can see, this is not a prop. Those were Monarch 12 gauge buckshot that I just ran through that. This isn't fake. It isn't an airsoft gun. This is very much a real Benelli M4 12 gauge clone that I had put together for my home defense use. Like I said, hopefully we can go and get a video out on that, but that leads me to my next subject. Guys, unfortunately, like I said, I haven't been getting a lot of the likes and shares that I really was hoping for, and especially with Patreon support. Put up a Patreon. My Patreon is over on my X, which Sasha will go and link to. If you guys could donate to my Patreon to make videos like the Remington video, the Star Model B, the Reguel, which is what I've named this, 1014 video happen, I really would love to do that for you. But unfortunately, just with on my wife's budget, since a little bit of backstory, in July of last year, I kind of had to drop out of working. I had some medical issues. I'm not able to really work anymore. We're struggling to go and get me classified as disabled because of the issues that I have. My wife's the only one working right now. And really, as kind of a hobby, I wanted to jump in because of the fact that I know firearms as much as I do, help educate people who don't know as much about firearms, and bring videos like the Remington or this firearm to you guys, bringing you affordable options on the firearms market to where you can be hopefully as better prepared as some of the more high-end YouTubers who are telling you, oh, just spend $2,000, get a real Benelli. Not everybody can afford that. Unfortunately, not everybody is a doctor or a lawyer or a person who can go out and drop $2,000 on a base Benelli and then spend another $800 to $1,000 in modifying it. This Mac 1014 might be the answer for you. As you guys saw, no hiccups, ran all 4 rounds, didn't have any issues, didn't have any failures. That might be something that you guys can afford. And those are the kind of videos that I wanted to bring to you guys. But unfortunately, I haven't been getting as much funding or any funding from likes and shares and YouTube monetization and Rumble monetization. And so, unfortunately, guys, because of that, we're really going to have to go and cut off the firearms videos until after our trip. Those who follow me on X, which I highly encourage you to do, again, that's the Conservative Wolf on X, know that we are planning a really big trip for going down to Megaplex, which is the furry convention down there. We are doing that. We are going to be visiting, hopefully, Disney Springs. We're going to be doing videos of SeaWorld Orlando, maybe we might be going and visiting the Universal parks. We'll just have to wait and see how that plans out. Then we're doing several days, I think 4 or 5 days, almost a week, in Tampa. There's going to be fishing videos and even more restaurant reviews with that one. Unfortunately, guys, with all of that we're trying to save up for and the firearms videos, as much as I love making these firearms videos for y'all, with no monetization, nobody resharing my videos, that's not really possible. And so, unfortunately, this is the sad part of making firearms content videos, in the fact that if you don't have monetization and you don't have viewer support, you can't really go far. Guys, I would love to make more videos like this for you. Hopefully we can go and get some Patreon support where I can go and put way more rounds through stuff like this and do part 2s to the videos that I've seen, but unfortunately without viewer support, that's not really going to happen. So guys, this is Sterling Belikov kind of signing off. I'm going to go ahead, and since you guys on my X went and voted, we will be doing the 38 special video. We might see about, with the ammo that we kind of have left, doing a part 2 on the Beretta 92A1. But after that, I'm probably going to end up having to, at least until after our trip, transition into doing blade reviews, reviewing the bladed objects that I have. There's some really good ones in that collection I'd love to go and show y'all. But then I'm going to be doing fishing and outdoors videos in that. We'll try and do some more fishing videos over the summer. Now is kind of the time for it. It's June right here in the Carolinas. Catfishing starts picking up now. We're going to start trying to do some catfishing videos. We fortunately live in the area of Lake Wylie, Lake Norman. We're going to start hitting those lakes, doing some fishing videos, and we'll probably do some food reviews before Orlando. I'll show you guys some food spots that we really love and enjoy, but going back to the firearms, unless we get support, likes, reshares, unfortunately, that's not really something I can do just on the YouTube monetization alone. So guys, those are kind of the announcement I was hinting at a little bit earlier in the Remington portion of the video. It's not really great news, but unfortunately, life kind of throws you the news that you have to give. Hopefully that can be rectified, and you guys have the power to do something about that. I get it, not everybody can donate huge amounts of money. Check out my Patreon. I have multiple different tiers of support level. I have some targets that we did with M16 video that are signed and dated that I was ready to give out to Patreon supporters. We're talking about using shell casings that we want to make into paracord necklaces and bracelets for you guys, so you can help show your support for Belikov Outdoors and these outdoor shooting, firearms, fishing, and food review videos. But unfortunately, not a lot of that happens without you. So I'll leave you guys. Hope you guys have a blessed day. I hope this video finds you well, and I hope you enjoy this kind of content. Until I can make some more videos with firearms, this is Sterling Belikov signing off.